After forming a coalition of human resistance against the enemy invasion, Dalinar Kholin and his Knights Radiant have spent a year fighting a protracted, brutal war. Neither side has gained an advantage, and the threat of a betrayal by Dalinar's crafty ally, Taravangian, looms over every strategic move. Now, as new technological discoveries by Navani Kholin's scholars begin to change the face of the war, the enemy prepares a bold and dangerous operation. The arms race that follows will challenge the very core of the Radiant ideals, and potentially reveal the secrets of the ancient tower that was once the heart of their strength. And at the same time that Kaladin Stormblessed must come to grips with his changing role within the Knights Radiant, his Windrunners face their own problem. As more and more deadly enemy fused awaken to wage war, no more Honor Spren are willing to bond with humans to increase the number of Radiants. Adolin and Shallan must lead the Coalition's envoy to the Honor Spren stronghold of lasting integrity, and either convince the Spren to join the cause against the evil god Odium, or personally face the storm of failure. Alright, and there we go, new mic. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Sandbox. I hope you all had a great holiday season, and I hope that we all have a much happier new year. Today is a very special video because it is my first book review. In case you didn't see the channel announcement, I will be going forward with book reviews for 2021. I've had Rhythm of War on my watch list all year long, and I have been preparing myself to be able to give you guys this new type of content in hopes of being able to branch out the channel a little bit. I love to read, and lately I've been getting back into fantasy and sci-fi and horrors, largely thanks to the Stormlight Archive, so I thought it only made sense for the Rhythm of War to be the first book review on this channel. I really wanted to find a way to have people who are new or old to a book series or a standalone novel feel welcome to my book reviews, so this is how it's going to work. The first few minutes, I'll give my basic, spoiler-free thoughts on the 4 cornerstones of a novel, which in my opinion are story, writing, characters, and the world in which the story is set. After I give you my rating, the second half of the video will be a spoiler talk, so anybody who has not read the book, who's not up to date, or just doesn't want to hear spoilers, hopefully I'll still be able to give you guys my brief thoughts and help you gauge whether you should pick up the book or not. And for those who have read the book, hopefully my spoiler talk will help you decide if I'm someone that you have similar tastes with and can trust for future videos and books. So with all that said, let's dive into Roshar with the 4th book of Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, The Rhythm of War. So right off the bat, I want to talk about the pacing to this novel, which I found simply phenomenal. As is the nature with these high epic fantasies, the Stormlight Archive usually starts out pretty slow and gradually increases this rhythm going into bigger moments, especially the end. Brandon is known for his finales, his Sanderlanches as we fans call them, and while this book does still have one, it is pretty small, but for a good reason. The book starts off like the end to a book that would have been written for the year that had passed between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. We get exciting missions coming to a close with certain revelations and allowing for newer, bigger, Cosmere-level questions to arise. We get some big action sequences and get to see how the characters and the new world have evolved in the past year. Part 1 starts off with a bang and was able to keep this pace through all 19 chapters for me, and at the end of Part 1 we had a very solid idea of the premise for the rest of the story, which I really enjoyed. It hyped me up by giving me a taste for what's to come with shocking surprises and big moments for our characters. Part 2 came and went, continuing this pace and structure, giving us more questions, but starting to dive deeper into each character's psyche and further setting up their arc for the book. Part 3 is where the book started to slow down for me and a lot of others that I've talked with. Part 3 for the first 2 books was where it felt like the pacing was starting to ramp up going into that Sanderlanche, but for the last 2 books, there has been a definite trudge that the reader needs to get through. However, I didn't think it was nearly as bad as Oathbringer's. I thought Oathbringer could have been cut by 100, maybe even 200 pages and still had the same payout. With Rhythm of War, I think the best Brandon could have done to elevate this a bit more would be to cut down and maybe splice together 3 to 4 chapters. I'll give an idea as to how he could have gone about this in the spoiler talk, because one thing that I really hate is when someone gripes about something in a story and doesn't offer potential solutions for how to fix that, so you can definitely expect that from me here. The writing style for Brandon is very accessible, but also very good, which is why I usually give every Stormlight book about an 8 out of 10 for the tone and style. And the themes of depression, anxiety, regret, and overall mental health definitely elevate the characters and the stories that Brandon is telling, earning him a 10 out of 10 for themes in every book in the Stormlight Archive. Now, moving on to story. As I said before, I think the premise to this book was actually one of the best. In the past, the stories have felt very similar to Game of Thrones in a way where we kind of just follow the characters and their world. They all have their own defined set of motives and aspirations that he weaves together extremely well, but the books really are just about war. And for the first time, this book felt very, very focused, making the gap between the plot's execution of the premise and the premise itself much smaller than they have been in the past. This story is very self-contained, pulling back on characters we really wanted to see more of, frankly speaking, such as Yasna, Dalinar, Renarin, and Seth, but it also meant that the moments we got with them were all very meaningful, purposeful, and focused on setting up the 5th book and the final book of the first sequence in Stormlight. Now, the characters and world building in this book are definitely where Brandon shined for me. For one, we get a lot of Navani here, and we also get to see things from the singer's point of view with R'Lain, Venli, and a new character to the series. Some people really didn't like the flashbacks for Venli and Eshonai because they thought we had already gotten that information and they would have rathered have Navani be the POV character. I kind of understand that, but personally I loved the world building aspect from the flashback chapters, and I thought Brandon did a decent enough job at getting me excited for Venli's involvement in the future. Also, because Navani is such a major player in this series and for other theories going around the community right now, I'm fine with having Navani having a big presence in a book every now and then rather than having a POV book for herself. Remember, you don't need to have flashbacks to learn more about a character's past. Sanderson has been expanding upon Navani's past through stories rather than flashbacks, and I hope he remembers to continue doing that, as it is very obvious Navani was a fan favorite even before this book. Now, I'm happy to say that if you were not crazy about Shallan and her multiple personalities or her involvement with the Ghostbloods, this book is finally giving us some huge payoffs for her. I have never liked Shallan more as a character than in this story, and that's including Words of Radiance, which was her POV book and still my personal favorite. I think Brandon handled her character extremely well, showing us what a healthy relationship can look like thanks to Adolin, and how hard it can be to come to grips with things that you regret from your past. I was loving Shallan and Adolin's arc so much that when they disappeared in part 3, I was so disheartened, but it actually did help me push through part 3 because I just wanted to see more of them, like they were that good. But of course, Kaladin Stormblessed is where Brandon Sanderson and the Stormlight Archive really shines. We have not seen Kaladin in darker places than in this book, yet I also find that there is a tremendous balance thanks to the characters, his friends, his families, all those surrounding him. I think the story is elevated by Kaladin's struggles while at the same time pushes him to get through it. Adolin shows how good of a person he can be on the friendly front as well, and still has never been more enjoyable to read. The themes of freedom and regret are not new to this series, but Brandon is able to put a fresh new twist on them that makes you feel for and relate to each and every character on the page. There were times where I came close to crying in the first 3 books, but I'm not ashamed to admit that Rhythm of War got me bawling like 3 or 4 times. I had to put the book down at a certain point because I was feeling it that much. Lastly, I think the world building is where this book really stands strong. We get to see more of Shadesmar and more of the war as we get to see the enemy's view of things. We learn more about Singer and Fused culture and history. We learn more about the infamous Recreants, and we get to learn more about the Cosmere. I've been planning on reading Mistborn ever since I finished The Way of Kings, but I've never been more excited to dive into that world after my read of Rhythm of War. So with all that said, after my first read through and after getting to think about this book for a couple weeks, but also before diving into a lot of other Cosmere books by Brandon Sanderson, I am fairly confident in saying that I think Rhythm of War is an 8.5 out of 10. I think if you like The Way of Kings for its smaller scale story and focus on character work, but you also enjoyed the larger ramifications and world building that Oathbringer brought, you will be happy with this new edition. So that wraps up the spoiler-free section of this review. If you are not caught up with the series, I highly encourage you to turn away. If you are caught up and want to see what I thought about some of the bigger moments, stay tuned. Let's talk some more about Rhythm of War. First off, I want to address that pacing issue I mentioned in part 3. The main thing here is that there are 4 to 5 chapters or so with Kaladin where he is basically living out Die Hard. It's an awesome sequence. We get to see him protecting these different nodes throughout the tower, working with Navani in secret. Really, Raboniel is watching them the whole time, and he's trying to figure out what's happened to the Knights Radiant, why are they falling asleep, and why is he still awake. We get a lot of character development with him and a lot of revelations, but I feel like we could have spliced together 3 to 4 chapters simply by making 4 nodes into 3. 3 is already pretty symbolic for the world. For example, we have 3 shards instead of 2. But I do know that Brandon likes his numbers in the Cosmere to be divisible by 2 or by 4. He just finds it really appealing. So it all comes down to how important, how vital the Fabrial Gauntlet, I believe it was, that allows Kaladin to fly without the use of his surges. It all depends on how important that's going to be in the 5th book or in the 2nd sequence for this series. If it's super important, it's going to basically make every order of the Knights Radiant have these powers similar to the Windrunners where everyone's flying around, then okay, maybe we don't need to cut it down. But if not, I think he could have cut about 40, 50 pages just by putting certain revelations together in 1 or 2 chapters rather than these 3, 4, or 5 for Kaladin. Of course, in the end, when all is said and done with this series, we're going to want to go back and have as much time to spend with these characters and in this world of Roshar as possible. So, I mean, I might just be entirely wrong, and coming back, revisiting this book, I might really enjoy the extra time that we get and having these revelations and character development kind of spaced out a little bit more in part 3. It does slow down the book a bit, but it might be worth it in the end. Okay, the big moment for this book was definitely Kaladin's 4th ideal. I mean, we have been theorizing and speculating on what the words could be. I personally theorized back in July that his 4th ideal was going to be, I will forgive myself for those I cannot save, or for those I cannot protect. Forget the exact wording. And I'm fairly happy with how close I was. A lot of people thought along the same lines. We knew it had to be about not being able to protect people. That's the biggest struggle that Kaladin has had for this entire series. I was a little bit off. It was, he says, Stormfather, I accept that there will be those I cannot save. But in a recent word of Brandon, I think it was a stream he had on December 17th, he confirmed that the 4th ideal, the theme of it is basically about forgiveness for yourself, somewhat. I don't know what it is for the others. He said that it will depend, it will vary on the individual, but I, for one, am definitely excited to see if Lopin says the 4th ideal and how that will work. I love the Lopin. And if you haven't read Dawnshard, read Dawnshard. That was amazing. I loved it. But definitely F Moash. That guy sucks, or I guess it's Vire now. Yeah, stupid name for a stupid guy. We see Moash has definitely lost his way, but it seems like, I'm not sure if he's actually blind, like if he meant literally he can't see anymore after what happened in this book, or if he just meant he's blind and like he's lost his way, he realizes that he's lost his way. Someone correct me in the comments down below, but definitely he got what's coming to him in some way. For now, he's definitely gonna get more of what's coming to him later on. I don't want Brandon to redeem him. I've said before on this channel that redemption arcs are some of my favorite. Moash does not deserve it. Screw that guy. The death of Teft and Fenderana, his spren, was heartbreaking to read. I cared way more about Teft than I did about Elokar, even in an Oathbringer where he's starting to say the words. But in the end of the day, I thought what Brandon wrote for Teft's death was way more powerful, way more captivating, and way more heartbreaking. I was writing notes all throughout each part. After I finished a part, or as I read a chapter, I would just jot down some notes of what I thought. And I wrote down at part 1 or 2 when Teft decided to stay with Kaladin. I thought, oh God, is Brandon going to use him and kill him so that to help Kaladin say the fourth ideal? I was right. Unfortunately, I did not want to be right on that particular matter, but I definitely think that a lot of us saw that coming. We knew we needed some huge death in this book for a big character that we really enjoyed, we really liked, so that it would push Kaladin over the edge. Literally, he threw himself off the tower's ledge. But in the end, it helps him and pushes him to say that fourth ideal. Of course, with Dalinar coming into play here, which was awesome. As I mentioned before, we didn't get a lot of moments with the Renarin, Yasna, or Dalinar, but the moments we did get were absolutely amazing. So as for the fifth oath or the fifth ideal for Kaladin, I've seen a theory going around on the subreddit Stormlight Archive that Lirin in the Way of Kings actually has the lessons that he taught Kaladin actually coincide with one of the oaths. We have Lirin, talking about protecting people rather than being a soldier, which, is kind of his overall arc with this book. He wants Kaladin to be a surgeon like him and not a killer. But the arc for Kaladin is that he learns that he can protect people by killing the enemy, of course. There's also a part in the Way of Kings where Lirin saves Roshar, I believe, even though Kaladin thought that he should just let him die because he hated him that much. But again, the third oath for Windrunners is protecting even those you hate. And the fourth one we have is Lirin. We did have a story in the Way of Kings where Lirin told Kaladin that you have to know when someone is gone. Someone's a lost cause. You have to know when there's someone that you cannot save and accept that and move on to the next person that does need help that you can save. And that's exactly how it plays out here. Kaladin realizes that Teft is gone. He can't save him. But with the help of Dalinar and his beautiful vision with Tien, which made me tear up, that was the moment I had to put the book away. Thanks to that moment, Kaladin realizes, you know what? Teft is gone. I can't save him. Thanks to him for everything that he's done for me. He put me on the right path. But you know what? I can save my father. And that's just a beautiful moment. Getting to see the Windspren attach onto him and give him his armor, his shard plate. That was a great moment, and made me speculate, and a lot of others speculate about what other kind of lesser Spren or cousin Spren the other Radiants get when they get to the fourth ideal for the armor. I'm gonna go on a hunch here and guess that Yasna and the Else Callers probably get Logic Spren, and the Light Weavers get Creation Spren, because a lot of them are artists in some way. It helps them hone their craft to make these illusions. So I can definitely see that being it. As for the others, maybe Dustbringers or Flame Spren, maybe Skybreakers or Gravitation Spren, I believe that's the word. All the others, I have no idea. I'm very excited to see how it plays out. This book gave us so much revelation, so much world building for this. I love the Radiants and the powers and how they work. So whenever I get to learn more about that and the Recreants, definitely get hyped up. Navani also has a huge arc in this book. I've been really hoping that she would be the second bondsmith. I know a lot of people weren't really ecstatic about that, but I've been hoping that she was going to be the new bondsmith ever since beginning of Oathbringer. I thought it made sense, and I knew the sibling was going to be the one. But how it all played out, Brandon did such a great storyline for her with seeing how she helps Gavilar with his legacy in the prologue, all the way to her doubting herself and finally realizing that, she's worth something. She's worth someone to give a damn about, especially Vyre, that bastard. The science and the leadership with the scholars throughout the book really enticed me. I know a lot of people found it kind of boring. I love the science. I had to read a couple paragraphs more than once or twice to fully understand it, but the revelations we get about light in this world are so cool, and the ability to kill Spren and possibly fuse. It seems like we know the trajectory of this series finally. So yeah, definitely very excited about that. I've seen a lot of theories circulating before this book that people thought Gavilar was going to be the champion for Odium, and that Dalinar would have to face Gavilar, and which he would lose on purpose. And that would be kind of the second sequence, is seeing how they come back from that. Basically Infinity War and Endgame kind of thing where we lose or win temporarily, and the second sequence is all about how we win in the end. So I'm excited to see how that's going to play out. But so it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anymore. In fact, I'm actually hoping that Gavalor will become the third bondsmith in the second sequence. I believe historically there's only been 3 bondsmiths. I believe that they can have their own squires, but we've only had 3 at one time. I'm interested to see if the Stormfather, the sibling, and the Night Watcher can have more than one Radiant that they bond with. I mean, they are these higher, very intense, very intelligent, very powerful Spren. It would make sense that they can have more than one bond, but yet they're all very unwilling, and I'm sure it has to do with the events surrounding the Recreants, which we'll get into a little bit later. I believe that historically the Stormfather and the Night Watcher's bondsmiths, some of them have been couples before, but not the sibling and the Stormfather or sibling and Night Watcher. So this is a new dynamic we have, and I don't think it's inconsequential. I don't think it's for no reason. I think Brandon is doing this and is going to do some mind tricks with us going forward. So I'm just happy to be along for the ride. I can't wait to see what he's going to do with this. Now, this is technically Venli's book. There's not a lot to talk about with Venli. She's kind of this nerdy, quiet, anxious girl. We see how she had this competitiveness with her sister Eshonai growing up, and she looks up to her mother and wants to save her mother. But now that she's the last singer, until she finds out that she's not the last singer, they actually survived. Her kind of arc, her theme has been about freedom, which is kind of what the Will Shaper's ideals are all about. I definitely enjoyed the journey with her. I think this book has been more than ever about the journey rather than the destination. We knew Kaladin was going to say the fourth oath. We knew there was going to be some big Shallan moments and reveals. We knew that Venli, we're going to learn more about the Fused and the culture and the history. We knew what we were going to get. We just didn't know how it was going to play out. And I personally had a hunch that Navani was going to be the bondsmith. But again, seeing how it all plays out is really what this book is about, life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. I think this book really embodies that mantra very well, especially for Venli and Eshonai. The ending, I thought, was a great use of flashbacks, ending with one, seeing how the Stormfather kind of tells his story. He tells Dalinar, I was gracious once, I was lenient once. Seeing him give Eshonai a moment, maybe even make her a Spren. Definitely, I have some questions there. I have a personal theory that Timber might actually turn out to be Eshonai, and I would love to see that relationship between Timber and Venli, which we didn't get too much of this book. In all honesty, 1,200 something pages, we didn't really get to see that relationship between Venli and her Spren evolve that much. I'd like to see this, maybe if it happens, I'd like to see how it causes their relationship to change and mutate a little bit. But of course, one of the biggest moments is learning about the Recreants with Adolin and Maya. Maya coming in clutch, saying that they cannot have their choice. We chose, they cannot have it. They decided mutual agreement between the Knights Radiant and their Spren. They decided together to abandon their oaths, and that's what caused the Recreants. We don't know the events leading up to that or surrounding the Recreants. Brandon Sanderson has teased that there is more to it than that, but the revelation we get with that and Shallan having killed her older Spren, I did not see that coming at all. Huge moments, hype me up, very excited to see what he's going to do with Adolin in the 5th book. I have some theories. I can't help but wonder if Adolin's going to become a Radiant. I believe most of us want to see him, but a lot of us do like that kind of Sokka dynamic that he has, where he's the one person who doesn't have powers. But he's the best duelist. He's the best at swords play, the best at fighting. And I think he would make a great champion for Dalinar and the Knights Radiant side for the Contest of Champions, which is happening in 10 days after the end of this book. And I can't help but wonder if he's going to come in clutch and maybe fast track these oaths. I mean, before this book, I heard a lot of theories about him being an edge dancer, simply because Maya and him are kind of, having this bond. They have this relationship. Adolin is healing Maya in some way, and that makes people believe that he will be an edge dancer. But you have to remember that an edge dancer, I mean, it's in the name. They dance the edge of the line, the edge of the war. They're not really about going in and fighting. They're going in about saving people, being on the outskirts, healing refugees, healing warriors, doing missions like Lif did during Oathbringer to get that, to heist the big ruby gemstone. So I don't think that really fits Adolin's arc of being this great, or doesn't fit his skill set of being this great swordsman. And ideal-wise, I mean, you can make any Radiance Order's ideals fit a character. I feel like you'd kind of have to force it with Edge Dancer. And the other one I thought that he might be before reading this was Truth Watcher. We saw Renarin, have this corrupted Spren. Ja Anat is making more of these corrupted Spren, and Renarin says that he had someone in mind. I could have sworn that was going to be Adolin, but I don't really see how Edge Dancer or Truth Watchers could really fit Adolin as a person who he is idealistically. The two closest ones I thought were actually Will Shaper. While I was reading this, we see how Adolin wants to separate himself from Dalinar and be his own person, make his own path. And I thought, if the Will Shapers are gonna, if the Light Spren, I think the Reachers, right? If they're gonna branch out from just the Parshendi or the Singers, I think Adolin would make a great choice. But the one I really think and hope that he's gonna be, even after reading this book, is a Stone Ward. Stone Wards are all about being there when needed. And I would love nothing more than for him to just fast track through all these oaths towards during the 5th book as a Stone Ward, getting up to 4th or maybe even 5th ideal by the end of it as a Stone Ward. I mean, if that doesn't embody being there when needed, I don't know what does. So I would really like to see Adolin, if Brandon Sanderson is going to go this route of him as a Stone Ward, I'd love to see him just fast track through these ideals, power up, get to Kaladin and Yasna's level, and be the champion in the contest, which I feel like we all know he'd win. But of course, the other options are Dalinar, Taln, the Stone Ward Herald, and Seth. And it is Seth's book, so I can't help but wonder. Seth with Nightblood is a deadly combo. We're gonna learn more about his past, more about the Shin as a culture, as a people, more about Ishar, who turned out to be a Shin Herald, which really makes sense when you think about it. So Seth could be our champion. He's been growing close with Dalinar, who has seemingly forgiven him for killing his brother, and he's serving as his bodyguard in this book. I can't help but wonder if Seth will be our champion as well. I don't think Kaladin will be the champion. It makes sense for him to. He's been the biggest character in this series by far. But it seems like he needs to focus on himself right now. Of course, if the contest is going to be in part 4 and 5, it's not going to be towards the middle or the beginning. So I'm sure he can go through an arc that gets him there, maybe even to the 5th ideal. And if he gets to the 5th ideal, they're going to have to put him in. He's going to have to be the champion. But at the same time, Seth could reach the 5th ideal as well. So I'm at a loss for words. I got no clue, and I'm excited about that. Lastly, Taravangian becoming Todium. Or Teravodium. He's the new Odium. He's the new vessel. I did not see that coming. And what he does to Wit has all us fans theorizing. The big theory right now is that the flute might have some memories stored in there that would help Wit realize what Odium has done. Or maybe it's kind of a play on Sanderson's part. It's not Odium in charge. It's actually Wit who is outwitting Odium and Taravangian here. It seems like he has no idea what has just happened, but maybe he has the pieces in place to figure out what is going on and maybe he'll be the one to find out that Reyes is dead and Taravangian has taken the place as the new vessel for Odium. Wit has a lot of great moments in this book, and I'll end with these. I mean, him and Yasna going, harsher, Wit, harsher, and digging into, I forget the guy's name, but digging into this really belligerent high prince, and just, Yasna bemoaning him, using this as a means to show that she means business and she wants to progress for the kingdom of Alethkar. The great moment there with Wit. I thought The Dog and the Dragon was the best story that Wit has told. I liked Fleet and I liked these other ones that he told Shallan and Kaladin earlier on in the series, but The Dog and the Dragon, that's just exactly what I would have wanted to tell Kaladin in that moment. I've been wanting to tell Kaladin, I've been wanting him to realize that, at a certain point, you can't look at what you can't do. You got to look back and see all that you've accomplished already. And this story is exactly what he needed to hear. And of course, Brandon doing it in a great way with Testament, the funniest cryptic spren by far. She's hysterical. I was laughing out loud reading her interrupting Wit and ruining the story. But yeah, having some great humor thrown in there with this story to show Kaladin, what he's doing wrong, which is not accepting what he's done right. So yeah, I thought it was a great story. I thought this book was just wonderful, excellent. There were some parts that could have been better. I think the mystery towards the middle with Shallan of who's the spy, who's telling Mraize all these things about her and reporting on her. I wasn't particularly invested in it. I could have sworn that it was actually going to be Vale, but we actually got a very great bittersweet moment with Vale leaving and Shallan kind of ascending, lowercase a, ascending to this higher version of herself, and definitely excited to see her continue on that path. But yeah, that moment where it turned out to be Pattern who was talking to Wit, I didn't really feel it as much as I think Brandon wanted us to, but that's just me nitpicking for little things. I thought the book was great, and I stand by my rating of an 8.5 out of 10. So guys, if you liked this video, if you liked my first book review, it's a very special series and book for me. Let me know down in the comments below and hit that like button, and please share the video with someone if you can. It really helps the channel a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you all next time.